Thank you, Swami. You're very kind to ask that. So the book's called Immersion, The Science of the Extraordinary and the Source of Happiness. It should be out in September 2022. It is really deriving insights from about 50,000 brains that we've measured immersion in, everything from watching ads to live customer experiences to training to students in school. Uh, yeah, I think it really again tries to reverse engineer that process. If you see enough of these experiences with neurologic data, then you can say, okay, well, what makes these experiences extraordinary? And no one wants to be married to an ordinary spouse. No one wants to have a blah customer service experience. No one wants to see a bad movie. And yet, so much of that happens. Maybe not the spouses, but I live outside LA. 80% of Hollywood movies lose money, and that's been true for the last 30 years. How is that even possible? Right? Think of how many ads completely miss the mark. All these smart people, creating advertising for stuff, and most of it fails. And for me, that's the lack of that is the lack of the right measurement, which is measuring these unconscious emotional responses. So if I'm going to message you, I should do it as well as possible. So one of the things that I developed in the book was a straightforward 5-stage um, framework to persuade other people. And it has an acronym SIRTA, SIRTA, that stands for staging, immersion, relevance, target, and action. I won't go through all that, but it's a very systematic way to say each of these stages is necessary if I'm going to provoke you to take an action after a message or an experience. And so again, that's just, years in the trenches, just like you guys have been with your business, years in the trenches, doing this over and over and over, and then patterns start to occur. So a lot of crazy stories, a lot of the initial work we did to discover this neurologic state immersion was funded by the U.S. military. So the book starts out with me getting my butt chewed out by um, a member of a clandestine organization early on in the war on terror, who wanted me to work a lot faster so they could get information from suspected terrorists. So a lot of crazy things happen in the book. So there's a lot of narrative in there, which I think is interesting, but also a lot of kind of do this thing, and every chapter ends with, here's the 5 things you should have learned from this chapter, so try doing these things. So I think it's going to be fun to read, but also I think quite useful. And then lastly, even though it's written primarily for a business audience, if you're interested in human behavior, which I think all of us are ultimately, why are people so weird? So I think there's, the secondary readership are going to be people like you guys who are actually just super curious about humans. Like, man, why are people so freaking weird? What's going on with these humans? And so you're going to learn a little neuroscience along the way, which I hope makes it useful.